Hello, and welcome to the Argyle HR Leadership Forum. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Eightfold AI, GEM, and UKG. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Jasmine Bellamy, Vice President, Merchandising, Planning and Allocation, Reebok Community and Culture, Reebok. We are excited to have Jasmine with us for a keynote presentation titled Telling Tales, Transforming Culture for Max Business Success. Welcome, Jasmine. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well. My name is Jasmine Bellamy. Just to give you a little bit of a frame of who I am a love practitioner, a joyful disruptor, and a business and cultural transformer right at the intersection of business, DEI, and love. I'm excited to be able to share a little bit with you today about the Reebok story, and how we've used storytelling to transform the culture of our company. So at the intersection of culture and business are people. And so as we have this conversation about max business performance, we are really looking at also how to get the maximization of the people who are also in the culture. But we share often here at Reebok, if brand is the DNA, culture is the soul. And so this work that I'll be sharing with you today really speaks to the soul of the organization. Culture, just as a definition that I like to work with, is the emotional environment you create and the behaviors that build it. So this both and of both the emotional environment and the behaviors really, really matters. So I also want to look at business as a system. And if we think about system as the noun, a set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network, or the set of principles or procedures, or the prevailing way of which we're doing things. The thing to imagine here is that an important part of the system of business are people. And if we think about business in its historical context, we've had a system that tends to be focused on a shift of instead of a being to doing, that is hierarchical, that is driven by domination versus empowerment, power over versus power with, and that is all from the historical foundation coming from Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. On the culture side, what that means is it creates a culture often that is driven by scarcity, survival of the fittest, productivity and maximization at the expense of people. And so what we're looking at is this system of business and the people that are in it. There's a tension, and it often creates a system that is actually driven by fear. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is understanding that creating that culture that is based in fear is actually the antithesis to maximizing business results. So I just want to invite you for a moment as I begin for you to take a moment to reflect on your own organization. How is fear showing up? What are the cultural norms within your organization? And if you want, feel free to drop those in the chat or just take it back with you as an opportunity to reflect. But if you think about how fear is showing up, whether it's how it shows up in the boardroom, how it shows up in the way people treat each other, even maybe some of the values in the rules you might put in place. What is actually happening in your organization that might be actually showing up and creating fear? So I love this quote because we often talk about the fact that culture eats strategy for breakfast, behavior eats culture for lunch. And so your culture is only going to be as strong as the behaviors that are existing in the organization and we are actually living out. So what I'm proposing for you to consider today is to think of business, people, and culture in a both and approach, where both the people and the business are flourishing. I like this quote from Lisa Kuzmin because it really speaks to this new road or this new opportunity ahead of us. She says, we need new pathways because a systematic change that is required. It means that leadership has got to change. There's a shift that's happening and we're paving the path and we're in it, and it's new territory. So this idea of thinking about systems that are not rooted in fear, creating these new opportunities where people can thrive as well as business flourish, requires a different type of leadership, and we're part of the opportunity to be able to create and cultivate that change. So I want to share a little bit about the Reebok story. So if we go back to 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, our company participated in United Against Racism. And they were very focused on how do we find an opportunity to create a system that is actually currently anti-racist. And I was asked to lead that work through change management. And what we were looking at the time was creating an opportunity for DEI training, enhanced DEI training. There was about 23 hours worth of DEI training that we were rolling out. But the conversation was really left to teams to kind of figure out how to navigate by themselves. And we were concerned about the level of effectiveness there. And if we really were going to transform our culture, what might that look like for us? And so what I embarked on in this leading of change management was really creating an opportunity that I describe as joyful disruption. And it was an opportunity to relook at how we did business, doing it a completely different way, and also inspiring other organizations to do the same. And we talked about having a commitment, focusing on change, doing it through conversation, and really looking at our entire organization in an interdependent fashion as a community. And so I created this platform called Courageous Conversations. And what ended up happening in Courageous Conversations, it was an opportunity for the community to actually be in conversation with each other, to learn and grow and be committed to change. And the beauty of it is we were changed by each person sharing their story. And so this power of people being able to use narrative as a transforming agent and force was significant in our company. And so while we began with the idea of having 6 courageous conversations to continue to walk alongside that DEI training, 6 modules, we're now completed 22 courageous conversations because we've kept this storytelling opportunity going, and we've seen it transform our company and our culture. So I want to emphasize too that this story of creating courageous conversations, beyond the example of it itself and what it did for the company, it also is an example of what it looks like for me as a senior leader to come to work fully integrated as my full self. And so we've had these, these are words we hear kind of moving around, and articles about people coming to work as their full selves. Well, this actually is what it looks like when a love practitioner, joyful disruptor, a business and cultural transformer with a redemptive imagination can come to work as their full selves. I could use my creativity to bring something like courageous conversations to the table, and it creates a storytelling mechanism to transform the culture of our company. So I want to give you a little taste of even how we begin the conversation at Reebok. And so there's this Slido that is on your screen. I encourage you to, or invite you to participate in just a little poll. And it's what we do as a check-in. And if you scan that QR code with your phone, it'll take you to our Slido. I'll give you a minute or two to do that. But when we start courageous conversations, it's so much about we're focusing on seeing the people, valuing the human, giving people an opportunity to name how they're doing. Because if we are not seeing people and where they are in their stories, we're missing that these things are actually showing up to work. And when we expect people to bifurcate themselves and show up in part, that means we're actually not getting the full breadth of their creativity to solve our problems, our complex problems that we have at work. So I'll give you an opportunity to participate in this Slido. I'm just going to switch screens so we can look at the Slido real quick together. And see how many of you are in here. So we always kick off courageous conversations asking people this question: what or how are you feeling in your body right now? Someone's full of M&Ms. That sounds like fun. Tired is usually the first thing that pops up on the screen when I ask people this question. Glad somebody's feeling good. Tired has gotten really big. Usually it's more than one person that is feeling tired. Content, trepidation, great. Curiosity. I love that you're coming to the conversation with curiosity. Chilly. The AC might be a little bit too high. Sore, comfortable, hungry. Oh, I hope you didn't miss your lunch. See good. Popping up, energized. Awesome. Eager to learn. That's a great place to be eager to learn. It's awesome. Some people are still typing. Hot. Did you share the AC? Person who's cold. Inspired. Some folks are still typing. Hangry. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I'm on the other side of you getting some food. I love that Energize is popping up too. Awesome. Gonna give it another second or two. All right. So thank you so much for participating. But one of the things that we have found when we use this as a tool at Reebok, it becomes really important for us to name how we're doing and understand how our teams are showing up, what might be on their minds. The beauty of this as well is that we, there's from a neurological perspective, there's an opportunity to name it and to tame it. And I love this quote from Brene Brown because it really kind of helps us understand even just a simple slide like that, how it helps us. but she says most of us were not taught how to recognize pain, name it, and be with it. But what we know now, when we deny our emotion, it owns us. When we own our emotion, we can rebuild and find our way through pain. And so just this ability to be able to name what you are experiencing in your body gives you an opportunity to be able to navigate through it, to find our way through whatever that obstacle might be. So helping just give language to our state becomes really important. So again, we open up every thank you for participating, but we open up courageous conversations that way, just so that people have an opportunity to express where they are, how they're feeling, how they're doing. We can acknowledge it, we can name it, and it becomes an opportunity of expression, again, so we can come to our space at work more fully. So I just want to share a little bit about what people are saying about courageous conversations. This was one of my earlier notes from a colleague that always touched me. And he said, I owe you a debt of gratitude for a number of reasons, for initializing and bringing courageous conversations to our company. I listen and learn so much every time I'm present. Rick, who's my colleague, puts things into place for me where it makes me hungry to hear more and understand. Thank you so much for waking me up. I was asleep for far too long. And Peter's not the only one. Our former VP of HR said, thank you, team, for bringing to life a great courageous conversation that let us successfully launch a powerful set of DEI behaviors we aim to live by as a company and as a community. And another colleague said, I still proudly wear my Be More Human shirt from a few years back. I think our work started back then with a simple tagline that made us think differently about the world around us. It was a calling to be allies and just be better people. And so what we have learned in this Reebok journey, it's so much about creating a culture that is fueled by love and not fear. Love is a stronger force than fear, and it allows us to see the strengths and the gifts and the greatness and the value of every human in front of us, and therefore allowing us an opportunity to really unleash the potential of every person, as well as the company as well. And so part of the work that I am committed to is helping us to transform our systems in a way that love is at the root as opposed to fear is at the root. And I came across this quote from Brian McLaren that I love. What would a system look like that was designed to help people become the most loving version of themselves? This is our invitation to reimagine the systems that we've inherited to produce a different result. And at the end of the day, when we talk about having an opportunity to maximize our business, what this invitation is for a new system, a new way of working, a new way of being at work, again, that allows both the people and the business to flourish. And so when I offer this invitation to love, especially for a room full of HR leaders, sometimes the question is, well, what does that mean? Because we tend to think very quickly about, our family or romantic, love in that way. And so I've used this little framework just to give you an idea of what love looks like when we are leading in particular. And so for the L, I use this example of being a learner, which I know I was excited that someone was bringing curiosity to the table earlier. This opportunity to listen deeply. And I love the etymology of the word respect actually is look again, so that we look more deeply in the things that we are experiencing and the people that we are meeting. Oh, open-minded, open-hearted, open to change, that we are in those stories that we're hearing from each other. What we saw was people being transformed by those stories. And so being open to change was a significant commitment of our organization. The value of the people. as I mentioned, but also being vulnerable. And vulnerable might look like being open to change, that we are not stuck on our own opinion, that we are allowing other people to help us learn and grow and transform. And E, I like to use the E for emotional well-being. It also gives us an opportunity to expand and evolve. So just an idea again to see what love looks like at work. And I'll show a few because sometimes people like, I still don't get it. So I shared some quotes from colleagues at Reebok and what they talked about, what love looks like for them at the workplace. And a colleague said, "Thank you so much for that conversation today. Every time we come out of a conversation, I feel loved, appreciate you and everything you do." Another talked about the fact that when they received a kind email after attending one of her performance review trainings for managers, that it meant so much to her. She felt love and has kept that note in her kudos file folder. And then another colleague, I paid $20 for her parking in an event, and she said that she felt loved. And what she ended up doing was taking that $20 donation or $20 that I gave her, and she paid it forward and donated it to an organization. But she also talked about this place where, who she put me on the spot and said who I am to the organization as our love leader. She says that in an example of love, and she appreciated me for my help and my guidance. So I just say all this to say we can drive business, and I would dare say maximize business by leading with love. And scrolling through LinkedIn, came across this the other day. This is be the reason someone feels welcome, seen, heard, valued, and loved. And this, I think, is the opportunity and the invitation for leaders in the workplace. That leadership is including different perspectives, angles, personalities, and life stories that often leads to great creativity, innovation, trust, accountability, and process improvement. So leading with love improves our systems and allows us to get to be more productive and to continue to grow. I think that the big piece that I would love to share, in particular with Reebok, that year following our launch of Courageous Conversations and really cultivating our community, was one of the best results that we've driven as an entire brand. And so there is a real material benefit for leading with love and using the storytelling of all of our colleagues to be able to grow and change and transform. And lastly, I think I just want to check the chat because I see that there's some comments in here. So I see a couple of questions, but I think we're close to time. So I just want to look at the questions real quick that have come in. Sorry, the first one. I just see. Okay, question one. Can you use the Slido feedback to create reports? I think you get the results of what your surveys are. We use them in surveys. I don't, report sounds a little bit more technical maybe than what Slido does, but you do get you can get a summary of the feedback that you have, and you can use it to ask different kinds of questions. We've had, yes or no questions, or we've also had multiple choice. So we use them in different ways to check in with people, we only use 3 really usually throughout the course of a courageous conversation as a pulse check. But it definitely is not something that we use to replace like an ENPS score or anything like that. Second question, what resources do I recommend on learning more about joyful disruption? Well, it's funny, right? Because it's something I've created. So, and I haven't written a book yet. So I can't send you to my own book yet. I think there, there's a lot of I'm trying to the one book that I would recommend at this point in time. There is a book that well, one is this the slide that I have on the screen right now, Love as a KPI, is a newsletter that comes out um on LinkedIn. So that is one that you can look at. But you can also look to the book um and the podcast. It's corresponding podcast at Love as a Business Strategy. And that one may give you some thoughts as well. But joyful disruption for me, in terms of how I define it, it's really about systems transformation. And again, I'm using a very integrated approach. So I'm looking at neuroscience, I'm looking at org culture. It's an intersection of many different pieces, definitely well-being and all of those kinds of things. But thanks for that question. Question 3, what metrics do you use to see how this benefits the organization? For example, has retention increased? So I would say that on my team in particular, I can tell you that I've been able to keep a team together for a long period of time over a lot of different transformations of our own company. And so I think the catch-22 of this, of course, is right. There's other external factors that at work. But what I can say is that most of the times, if you ask people about their experience at Reebok, the thing that they'll say is number one is the people, and it's the community of Reebok. What I can also share is that we've had people who have who moved on for different reasons and still wanted to be a part of the Courageous Conversation community. So it's one of those things that we're vested in the humans themselves, wherever the humans may go. That it kind of even transcends our particular company in that way. And it's much more about, again, being able to see humans flourish. The last one is, see if I can squeeze this in the last minute. What example of telling a story using the love approach? What kind of communication, speech, an email, a town hall? So for us, Courageous Conversations is very much the example of the telling a story, because people literally would jump on screen or stand up in a meeting and they talk about their life and how it might connect to whatever the particular topic might be that day. And so that idea of love, thinking about how we're listening, we're open, people are being vulnerable, and we're also looking at emotional well-being. That's how it all comes together. And so for us, it has been in a more of a town hall setting, so to speak. It did start out virtually at first, because we started in 2020. But we do have them in more of a town hall approach, but it can be used in a podcast. It can come across in an email. Definitely can be a speech. It can be all of those things. So I hope that answers that question.
Great. Well, thank you again, Jasmine, for such an incredible keynote. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. This officially concludes the HR Leadership Forum. Thank you again, Jasmine, and thank you for everyone else who joined us today and engaging in our content. Everybody have a great day.